So we're going to start doing the working group outbriefs, and we're going to start. Group 1 is space policy and finance. 2 is ISAM. 3 is workforce. 4 is space domain awareness and traffic management. So I'm not going to introduce you all, just keep it going.
Great. Well, we had the space policy and finance. We had a great working group, a lot of energy and a lot of passion that we hope that we capture today. So Bryce, were you able to display some of the key? Okay. Well, diving straight into what we were hearing from the key assessments and recommendations. The first one was really this gap between future commercial space market and the current market environment today. Right now, the U.S. government is an anchor customer, but as we look forward in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we are going to see a major shift where the U.S. government and government in general becomes a much smaller share of the overall economy. So we're really looking at, with the U.S. government, the U.S. government is looking to industry for capabilities to deploy, but industry R&D decisions are currently relying on U.S. government demand signals. And so we're in this interesting, situation right now. And with the role of the U.S. government as an anchor customer, it is critical to send out coordinated in a coherent direction for both policy and finance. So with that, there is significant interest on the recommendation side, and those are in blue, for a Department of Space or interagency body empowered to coordinate this space policy, regulations, and finance. Another key that really hit was that high-level messaging that we're levels of the U.S. Space Force and the Air Force are not leading to concrete acquisition or funding allocation at the program level. You're seeing a lot of talk, but we're not seeing a lot of movement of money. And so that was something that was another part was I would call it a translation or common lexicon of language. For government, profit margins of 8 to 12% sounded large. For commercial vendors, they had they completely disagreed. And so this understanding, even though we're using the same words, such as the word commercial market, it means two different things to those audiences. And the lack of that translation of what those terms actually mean has led to, an unfamiliarity with, I would say the wrong tools either being used or some confusion. So with that, one of the things that we were talking about was talent and providing opportunities for, I would call it, it's similar to how learning about other languages or other countries you would study abroad. Instead, U.S. government would go to industry comes over to government to help bridge that translation divide. And we also had the lack of regulatory and policy coherence with business practices. With policy, for example, with acquisition, it moved at a very slow pace, which was, in the commercial sector, there were multiple iterations of tech development in that one acquisition cycle. And so there's this mismatch in time. And there was a mismatch in other areas as well. So really, how does the government, for recommendations, how does the government accelerate the pace and alignment of our government procurement and acquisition to align much more with these, commercial business practices? And then next slide. Money is where it's at. So really about, with space being so expensive and very capital intensive, we need to allocate not only a larger amount of funding, but also more I would call it place bigger bets, given this higher cost. So rather than a $50,000 grant, we're looking to 1 million or 5 million at these different phases. The other thing would be there's a number of different financial instruments, and really we're really only leveraging grants at this stage. So how does that expand out to debt, commodities exchange, insurance markets, derivatives, so that we're expanding the range of financing mechanisms available. And then finally, it was hit on ITAR restrictions and the limits it has on both our access to global supply chains and talent, as well as hindering U.S. competitiveness. So the inability to export where other companies, international companies, can access both their domestic as well as the U.S. market. So really, for recommendations, how do we streamline and align that regulatory regime with those on the ground and changing market conditions? So that's really, for the summary, we have the recommendation summary. That's really some of the key findings that came from our group. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Oh, that was great.
Awesome. Well, many thanks to Bryce, who was keeping us on track and everything on ours. And thanks for the great feedback from all the participants. So I guess who's up next?